And following the Central Bank of Nigeria's plan to redesign the Naira, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has commenced a clampdown on bureau de change operators in Abuja and Kano as the Naira slumped to 857 Naira to the dollar at the parallel market. The raid is expected to be extended to Lagos, Onitsha, Ibadan, Port Harcourt, and other major cities across the country. The operations were said to have disrupted the day's business as many of the BDC operators in Abuja went on the ground. The black market Forex dealers were carrying on their business activity as usual when the EFCC operatives, backed by armed policemen, stormed their makeshift stores in the Wuse area of Abuja and took many of them into custody. The Naira has continued to be under pressure against the dollar since the central bank announced a plan to redesign Naira notes to fight counterfeiting, inflation, and insecurity with effect from December the 15th. The development was blamed on BDC operators and individuals desperate to convert their ill-gotten money into hard currency. In the meantime, the EFCC also arrested candidate of the new Nigeria People's Party, Ismaila Yusuf Atumeyi, contesting Kogi State House of Assembly with 326 million naira and $140,500 cash. EFCC spokesperson Wilson Uwujaren said Mr. Atumeyi was arrested alongside Joshua Dominic, an alleged serial fraudster in a sting operation at Macedonia Street, Queen's Estate, Gwarinpa, Abuja. Also arrested in connection with the fraud is one Abdul Malik Salau Femi, a former bank employee who allegedly supplied the inside information that facilitated the attack on the bank by the syndicate. The arrest of the suspects followed months of investigation into the hacking of one of the commercial banks by a syndicate of fraudsters who pulled off a heist of 1.4 billion naira. And joining me now is CEO Lead Network, Chukuma Okenwa, and he joins me to discuss this move by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and just the overall outcome of the policy by the CBN. Good to have you join us.
Thank you.
So while she was speaking, I know that you remember that the Minister of Finance did say that she did not have any, she wasn't informed about the move to redesign the Naira. But while she was speaking, she did say something about that kind of policy having consequences. There is now scarcity of the dollar in the country. Do you think that perhaps is one of the consequences? And what other likely consequences do you think that we might face as a result of this policy?
Certainly, I think my major problem with all of these policies is the timing. Why take such a decision amidst high inflation rate, great devaluation of the dollars, declining foreign reserve, and of course, economic downturn. So when you have a situation where you don't even have enough reserve, such that companies, the flight companies operating within Nigeria, cannot even access dollars to repatriate back home their funds. Like for any Nigeria that have traveled recently, you come to find out you're almost buying it twice the value of what is the official rate on dollars, right? Because the airlines no longer sell in Naira, which ought not to be so. Like you're operating within a nation, but you cannot sell in the nation's currency. Because at the end of the day, you cannot access dollars. And despite the fact that the government has threatened that failure to sell flights in Naira will come with some consequences. But I think the Nigerian government actually has failed to realize that for every economic decision, the policies and mismanagement comes with dire consequences. I mean, fixing the economy does not take military order and commands. It takes like tactical reasoning. You evaluate, you should be able to anticipate, even make some projections. What these have shown, like with the reaction we see from the EFCC, is that the government actually did not think clearly the process, did all the necessary consultation, even maybe have like a conversation from the executive council. You can imagine like the Minister of Finance is not even aware. Yes, it's not her right to be aware, but I think for someone who is the coordinating minister, of the finance and the economy, not to be aware of such a very important policy, I don't think it's right.
Absolutely. While this is a monetary policy, it does also have fiscal consequences. But and perhaps maybe that's one of the things that we are seeing now. But let me ask you, we seem to think, because a lot of people are now changing their money to dollars, and the notion out there is that it's those with ill-gotten wealth that are changing their money from the old currency to the dollar just to ensure that that money is still intact. But I've spoken to people in a couple of days who have said, look, and hardworking people, that they are willing to change their money to dollars just as a way to save it, and then their money doesn't continue to lose its value. Because the 10,000 naira you had in the account yesterday is not the same, doesn't have the same value as of today. Do you think that we might likely see pressure on the naira even further as we wind up the year?
Certainly, because we've seen just some days into this policy, we've seen like the dial impact, because even to pay school fees abroad now, you can access the dollar. So what I would have advised the Nigerian government is focus on fixing the nation's economy. We as people focus on fixing their personal finances and as well as that of their families. It makes economic sense for someone like you have your money exchange into like a currency that is more stable. That should be a concern to the Nigerian government, of course. But what should they do? Go after the citizens? Not at all. The citizens, they have their rights. You have your currencies, you made your money the legitimate way. The federal government cannot tell you, okay, you are not supposed to do this, or you are not even supposed to use products or even import and all the rest of it. Everyone have a right as individuals. What would have expected the government to be occupied with is, how do we earn more foreign reserves? We see more or less like inhibitory policies rather than regulatory ones, and ones that promote prosperity. Nigeria government is not thinking the critical thing, which is how do we earn? And let me say something which I've always said. Our government is always quick to make references, to compare, oh, this nation is doing this nation is borrowing. If you check the revenues of this nation, check policies, check fiscal responsibilities and management, you can't in any way compare with that of Nigeria. So why is it that when it comes to borrowing the right template to fix the economy, you are not going to emulate from those great nations? It is when it comes to the one that is going to have more dire impact on the citizens that are already feeling the hardship that you begin to make some of those references. I think the government can do better.
I'll continue to see how this policy, the consequences of this policy eventually. Thank you so much for talking to us. CEO, Lead Network, Chukwuma Okenwa. Thank you.
Thank you.